All right. Greetings, YouTube. This is the Garage Autonomist. Now, I want to see if we can get through all the things I want to talk about tonight. If we can't get to the whole gender war question, which was not really a subject matter that that I wanted to do seriously. I mean, I don't even take it seriously. Not on, not if it's if it's about YouTube, but I figured it would be a pretty good thing to do. If I can't get through to everything I want to get through to tonight, because I definitely have to get off of here by 11:30, then I'll do it for next Thursday. I did contact a couple of special guests to see if they'd be interested in being interviewed here next Thursday. I don't really want to get into it as to who they are going to be, but because I've done, it's happened before where I say somebody's going to come on, and then we wind up playing phone tag or email tag rather, and it doesn't work out. So let's go ahead and get this started. Now, the things that I want to talk about the Families Belong Together mobilization here in New York City this past weekend. And then I want to read Phoenix's comment that she left on my intro video. So I want to read that to you guys, and then we'll see if we can get into the last topic. Now, the families belong together. Oh, let me see. Hope my levels are coming out okay. Just give me a second. I'm doing this without the virtual cable tonight, so I don't know what the sound quality is going to be like. Now, let me see here. Let me think. Well, I mean, I have some notes here, but the Families Belong Together mobilizations, particularly here in New York City, there was definitely like the thousands. I went to our march here, and I went to it late, and that was on purpose because I rarely go to marches, as I typically participate in demonstrations or protests. And yes, there is a difference. I need to say first that the New York City March, along with the other 750 cities of every state, it was in the thousands, and it started in Manhattan at Foley Square, where there is a current occupation, if you will, a 24/7 occupation, directly across from the Department of Homeland Security at 26 Federal Plaza. Now, the march traveled from Foley through the city and over the Brooklyn Bridge, where it concluded at Cabot Plaza. I did not go to Cabot Plaza. Now, keep in mind that a week ago, the U.S. Supreme Court reimposed key sections of Trump's travel ban of Muslims after his two failed attempts to get it imposed a year ago. We were all jumping up and down and clapping when it got shot down, when he kept going to the Supreme Court to get this going. And I wasn't doing any shouting. I wasn't doing any jumping up and down. I knew that this shit was going to go through. Just call me a skeptic, call me whatever. But I really did feel that was going to be the case. Now, and this was a blow to immigrants. And this, along with the ICE raids that have been separating families at the border, including domestic raids, since the Zero Tolerance Initiative was deployed from April 19th between from April 19th. So that means that between April 19th and May 31st, at least at the time, it was already documented that there were 2,000 children who were separated from their families, resulting in kids being kept in detention facilities. Now, granted, while Trump made a concession to slow down the process, the damage and the intent is still being done as children are in processing centers and parents are held or being deported. Hey Angela, what's up? How you doing? Let me just look at my notes here. So anyway, at the march, one of the things here is that I was definitely happy to see that the turnout, though it wasn't as big as the women's march, which I didn't go to. My wife did, my daughters did, or the recent mass actions like this. I remembered being annoyed at the fact that, as always, the Democratic Party and the liberals dominate the tone and push through their agenda with actions with that when it comes to these larger mass actions. You'll see the mass signs, printed by the usual suspects, suspect printing houses, paid for by the usual suspects, consisting of big labor and Democratic PAC funds. I saw the signs, even the ones that were homemade, demanding that children be with their mommies, and they were all strategically placed in the hands of mostly, white middle class kids. And all of that is great for optics. And yes, there were a lot of people who were truly there because they cared about what was going on. But I get that. But see, my issue here and the issue that the left, the radical left, that would be people like myself and whatever, have always seen this have always seen that the real issue is really about this new aggressive attack on immigrant rights. This is about terrorizing immigrant workers and further justifying a stronger militarized system of authoritarianism over the largest sector of the working class, which of course are the immigrants. In other words, these policies come from the ruling class, with Trump acting as a politician in the highest office of the land to further control and dehumanize immigrant workers at a more aggressive turn that they've always, which is the rate that they've always wanted. And I do believe that Trump and his buddies, his 1% buddies, are not really looking to erase the quote unquote illegal immigrants from the workforce. It's really what they want to do, mainly because uh, immigrants, whether they're legal or not, are good are good as an exploitable sector of the working class. They don't have a strong enough advocacy. Yes, there's plenty of nonprofit organizations, there's plenty of activists, and there is a movement out there, but it's not as big and as massive as it should be because the larger labor movement has, just simply isn't there in terms of the support for immigrants. They certainly won't do it if the immigrants are quote unquote illegal. And that's just typical neoliberalism at work for you right there. Now, Angela says the families belong together march, correct? Trump has a zero tolerance policy. Exactly. But it's not just Trump. See, and I'm about to get into that, Angela, because it didn't just start with him. I hate to say that to his defense, as he, made sure that Sarah would tell everybody that, he's just enforcing the law. But it is true. This was all signed into law and put into place going all the way back to 2011. I'm sorry, did I say 2011? 2001. Sorry, after 9/11. That's where I got the 11s mixed up. So anyway, my point here is that this is about dehumanizing those who produce, and who knows if they can make further make these policies work, they could apply the system to the so-called quote unquote real Americans who are workers as well. Now that's just my take. That's just conjecture. on my part, but that's what I do believe. Either way, what's happening right now must be fought against because this is a human rights issue. And if unchallenged, it will wind up affecting all of us. I mean, if they come for one group, they can come for all of us. Like Angela Davis says, if they came for me, wait, if they came for me tonight, they'll come for you tomorrow. And I do believe that. Trump, the ruling class, does not have people like you or me in their minds as they're doing these laws. And I don't think that they believe that they're actually going to clean up the streets of drugs or crime or anything like that by enforcing these laws either. I believe that what they want to do is to further make immigrants even more vulnerable, even more compliant, because I mean, who knows, man? You make them better wage slaves. The way I see it, by further, by further subjugating them. Now, oh, I see Jenny is in the house. Jenny is here. Angela says the detention centers are placing these children are pissing me off. Yep, exactly, Angela. I'm glad you see it this way. Um, anyway, so now I will have to say this, and I know that this is I'm going to get into I want to get into Phoenix's comment that she left, like I said, and this kind of plays. I know that she's going to feel like I'm playing into this whole left versus liberal thing, and I'm really not. This is not about me condemning the liberals, but the problem is that I'll get to it in a minute. My point is this: what the left have been doing all this time. Oh, sorry, hold on. Okay, yeah. All right, sorry about that. I just had to tell somebody something. Now, having said all this other stuff that I said, my annoyance at the Democrats and the liberals is how they are making this basic human rights issue to be raised important now only when children came to be affected in a way that could not be ignored. And of course, they are using the children as a political arrow to be aimed at Trump because he won the White House and their candidate did not. I know that I'm generalizing here. I know this doesn't apply to all liberals. I'm just saying that this seems to be the case. Only only the left, the way I, have documented, protested, wrote about, talked about ICE. We talked about the ICE raids and the impact on immigrant families for years. When? Since the Patriot Act was signed and the Department of Homeland Security was established. Immigrants here in New York City have been in danger since the anti-terrorism bill, and it stipulated indefinite detaining of immigrants for any reason. Now, we've had protests here in New York City. We've had people holding vigils in front of a lot of these detainee centers in Brooklyn since 2003. Now, the National Council of La Raza created a study published in 2007 titled "Paying the Price: The Impact of Immigrant Raids on Children's on sorry of in the impact of immigration raids on America's children." The link is of the PDF is in the low bar. Now, where it's obvious that ICE raids, it was obvious that ICE raids had gone in people's homes of immigrants, and they've been separating children for quite some time. Although the way it's been, the way I've read accounts, uh, people have, they've left children in the homes unattended, or they just left them with relatives and shit like that. Again, we've been seeing these stories floating around for years. My point is that is a Democrat was voted into office after after Bush was gone, and you didn't get a lot of this outrage as these raids were still happening. And he's been and Obama was in office for 2 terms. The outrage only seems to happen now because you get the past argument of immigrants being illegal and whatever, and then they have the right. So, and then they keep bringing, people trying to get people tend to get hung up on what's legal and what's illegal. I mean, it's funny that we talk about this because we're on stolen land to begin with. So this whole thing about us getting caught up in debates about what's a legal immigrant and what's illegal, and meantime we've seen this huge extreme of pushing of policies happening. um we can't afford to really be hung up on these kinds of arguments. Now, see, Angela says the last I checked, there were 638 protests worldwide. This is serious business. And Angela says, "What gender war? I'm just kidding. I'm just giddy to catch a live stream." Thank you, Angela. Um. So anyway, I'm just let me just get back with my notes here because now I'm just rambling. So really, what was the main thing? That was the main thing that I was angry about that day. Was just this hypocrisy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm glad that people came out. I was glad to be part of the march. Like, well, I was just glad to have caught up with it. Like I said, I wasn't there from the beginning. I just, because with people like myself, if you've been to one march, you've been to a million. Um, but I just remember that dynamic, it just really annoyed the shit out of me. I didn't look at the speakers. I missed the speakers from the rally, and I certainly didn't go into Brooklyn to see more of them because I knew what was going to be. It's going to be a lot of talking of heartstrings and things like that. Um, when we really should be trying to raise people's consciousness on a serious level, and raising questions about who's illegal, how can we talk about people being illegal when, uh, first of all, when you look at our own policies in other countries, we help create the poverty anyway. We've helped create poverty through our neoliberal economic policies that have actually increased the amount of people needing to come here because they're just the abject poverty in these other countries. We actually helped create that. And like I said again, this country was built on stolen land. So who are we to be talking about who's legal and shit? So this is just basic shit that's been happening, and we've been fine all along because the argument um, before it became about kids. No, sorry, before it wasn't about kids. Now it is. So anyway, now I want to read Phoenix's comment that she left in my intro video to tonight's live stream because I thought her perspective was really interesting and good. Yeah, here it is. So now, here at this point, I'm going to start reading. Phoenix says that I was at my local march and it had 3 times more than people than I thought it would. Now, Garage, my observations may offend you, so brace yourself. Any offense is not intentional, which of course I don't take it intentionally. I love you, Phoenix. So at my march, there are 90,000 Caucasians. Okay, she says. Next were a huge amount of Latinos, no surprise, and a small mix of African Americans. That somewhat surprised me, and I found that puzzling. Did you notice anything similar? Chicago's turnout was off the hook, very impressive. All right, I'll get to your answer at the end of your comment. Also, I strongly resist infighting among the left at this point. We are in extremes, my friend, and given the very grave situation that we are up against, I think devolving into the cliche that somewhat accurate criticisms of the left squabbling amongst itself for political territory is incredibly short-sighted and a horrifically ignorant behavior to get into. It has been the biggest weakness of the left, glaringly so, that the fascists and neocons have fully exploited. I've never gone live with you, but I would on these topics. Oh, I missed that little last part. I should have invited you, Phoenix. Text is, after all, rather cumbersome. So I got my Twitter handle. Anyway, yeah, you know what? I think I want to bring that up. Maybe we should do that as a separate hangout, Phoenix, and I think we will. I would love to do that. So we'll do that. So in conclusion, she says, we are at war politically and legislatively. This is not the time for special interests, whoever the fuck they are, to battle each other, but rather our very common enemy, and the left needs to suck it up, uncross their eyes, and leave the damn ego at the door and focus. Lastly, on this issue, I just want to hit on two things. Okay, so anyway. All right, so Phoenix, you brought up the last two things that I wanted to bring up, which I was going to conclude the whole immigrant part. And wow, it's only 10:51, so looks like I am getting through this shit a lot quicker than I thought. Uh, you see, oh shit, other people are here. Let me. Ace Atkins, do you feel that these people are being let in to replace Black Americans? That's a good question, Ace. I want to answer that. Please don't go. I will get to that in a minute. Okay, so you know what? Let me just go ahead and finish what I got to say, and then I want to hit the chat because there's a lot of really cool shit happening in terms of questions. So let me just go back and answer Phoenix's question. I think what Phoenix is getting at was was there such a low turnout for Black people? I know Phoenix is in Arizona, or I think it's there. I think Phoenix is in, or is Phoenix in? I really don't know where Phoenix lives, but I know that here in New York we had a huge amount of Black people. But naturally, of course, if I had to to really parse it, yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of Latinos of all different nationalities: Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican. Uh, then definitely a huge amount of Caucasian people, and a huge amount of African Americans. Now they were the smallest. If I had to guess them being African Americans, a lot of the people who were Black could have easily been Dominicans, and they could have easily been uh, Puerto Ricans, and they could have easily been Jamaicans. And that goes into what I'm about to say. I do think it's one of the problems that I'm having right now is I've seen a lot of videos by Black people, by African Americans on YouTube, saying that they're with Bush on this. And the general idea is that either one, they feel that immigrants haven't done anything, quote unquote, for Black people, or they've treated Black people in a certain kind of way, or Mexicans are like this and Mexicans are like that. It basically starts to sound like it's about to be a stand-up a joke, stand-up comedian routine. No. Here's the thing about that. I'm going to give you my perspective on this, and anyone who's African American and they feel the opposite, I don't think I'm going to go with the assumption that you really. I'm not going to go into calling anyone names, calling people ignorant or stupid or anything, because that's the thing. They, meaning the ruling class, love to prey on divisions, and the divisions exist because of ignorance. Okay, or and little like superficial observations and stuff like that. So here's where I'm at. And y'all heard me talk about this when I've been working since I was a teenager, and I've worked in a kitchen, I've worked in a fabrication plant. The majority of my coworkers were Mexican or Central American, like from El Salvador, Nicaragua, what have you. Yeah, you probably are going to get some because maybe there's not a lot of Black people in their countries. They have a certain attitude, or they're going on certain stereotypes. Usually these ideals are things that are exported from this country culturally, and other people have attitudes or whatever. But for the most part, when you talk to people and you start working with people day after day, you get to know each other and attitudes change. Now, that's been my personal experience. I'm not trying to make your experience my experience, but it's just like any group of people. Not all people are going to be fucked up or prejudiced towards you or your group or our group. And I think sometimes we kind of let that persecution mindset take over just a little bit, um and thinking that, or just assuming that everybody who's Latino is anti-black. That's, again, that has not been my experience. Okay. um so having said that, understand that, first of all, the immigration issue is not just a Mexican issue. Like I just brought up, the Supreme Court reimposed Trump's anti-Muslim ban. They made changes to it that they said was unconstitutional, whatever. But the point is, they reimpose it. This is a problem. Not all immigrants are Mexican or Central American. And guess what? I don't give a fuck. That makes no difference at all, because immigrants are all nationalities. I mean, there are Jamaicans who are immigrants here. There are the black Dominicans that look just like you or me. I mean, I hate having to go to such a basic message here, but it's true. Like, if you are running around saying you support what Trump is doing, you're also basically supporting the banning of Jamaicans, Africans, Dominicans, people who look like us too. So, I mean, I hate to have to narrow it down to this sort of nationalistic point, because I'm not a nationalist, but I'm just making, I just have to make it clear to you that it's not just about one group. Two, basically, you are repeating and reenacting a neocolonialist mindset. In other words, you're basically taking on the prejudice that white supremacists have taught us to think and have taught us to be this, sort of closed-minded, xenophobic mind. And the thing is, our people are the last fucking people in the world who should have this mindset, because it seems like everything that was done to us, we think it's cool if it's done to somebody else. No, it's not. So that's basically it. That's the reason why I'm against it. That's why I just said earlier that what's happening to this violation of human rights right now that's happening to immigrants, okay, can easily be done to us too. Believe me, they can change it to anything. Um, you know, not to get into like science fiction. I'm not science fiction, but not to get into some kind of form of political fiction. But if they wanted to, there's the very structure of ICE, the very structure of Homeland Security can be turned on any population in the United States, any group, especially if they're poor and if they're working class. So it's immigrants today. Who's going to be next? It could easily be black people. And it, so no, I can't get into this. I'm supporting Trump on one thing, but then I'll turn around and be ready to protest Trump when he sits back and allows cops, or says nothing when cops shoot black people. Like, that's completely hypocritical. Trump is not doing this shit with us in mind. He's not doing this with us in mind. He's not doing this with Billy Ray Bob in mind. He's not doing this for anyone other than this is a form of crowd control of immigrants right now. All right, so that's all I got to say about that. Also, one last thing. If you're not cool, if you're not sitting around saying, well, I'm down with, I'm not down necessarily with just passive marching or wanting to vote. We can support the people who are doing blockades of the ICE centers right now. And in Portland right now, there are people that are blocking the ICE the who are occupying and creating blockades and at ICE, and you've got the occupation of the park happening in New York City across from the Homeland Security Office. So those are things to support. If you can't do those actions yourself, which believe me, I'd be a hypocrite if I told you I was doing that. No, I'm not. But I mean, I can't, whatever. But I definitely would support it. I would definitely support what they're doing financially in case any, people get arrested. I donate money here and there, you know. So let me get to this chat because there's a lot of cool shit being said in here, and I want to get to it. Now, Ace Atkins says, do you feel that these people are being let in to replace Black Americans? No, I do not, Ace. I think that immigrants have been coming here to this country since the colonialists came and took it. So the way I see it, no one's here to replace us. One, and you know what? And I will say this in defense of all the working class, people who were born here, generations or whatever, who are no longer working the jobs that they say immigrants are working. I don't like to use that belief that, well, the Americans are lazy and they don't work the immigrants are working jobs that we don't want anyway. No, the bosses are the ones who froze us out of the workplace in terms of not giving us living wages. And we shouldn't think that immigrants are somehow benefiting from this because all they've been doing all these years is living on less than a substantive wage that we all said we don't want to work. And we have every right to not want to work those things, but we should be supporting them and not wanting to work it either. That's how come I supported the hike of the minimum wage, even though that's the reason why I supported it. And it should be higher, but and most immigrants are working in these, working those kinds of jobs, especially fast food as well. Let me see. Angela says, I saw the speakers, no real talking points. Yeah, I believe that, Angela, because the speakers, these are mostly all Democrat. These are all Democratic people and stuff like that. I mean, I heard that maybe the Washington March had a lot of immigrant activists and stuff speaking. And I've heard some sound bites here and there that were nice to hear, but that was about it. Hooded One says, hey, what's up, Hooded One? I haven't seen you here in a while. Ben is new. Ben says that I just got news alert from AP that the Army is discharging immigrants who joined with the promise of citizenship. Yeah, that's new to me. I'm going to look into that. Thank you, Ben. Angela says she saw that alert as well. Ben says that the only tolerable infighting is the push against neoliberals and centrists. Yeah, I didn't even really fully answer Phoenix on that one. The problem here is that the left we don't defend our positions enough when it comes to the liberals. What happens is we get bowled over or ignored when it comes to sort of coalitional work that we saw, like in terms of getting these marches, because that's what it took to get these marches going this past weekend was, usually it's a lot of coalitional work and organizing that happens. And it's when the left is saying, look, we feel like we should be talking about this. We need to make this point. We're just making this about the kids, but we need to talk about the fact that the immigrant laws and the immigration laws in this country have never been just, so on and so forth. And as always, we get shut out. So it's not like it's a division that this is about us just picking fights just to pick fights. This is about real political issues that get raised and should be fought for the full range of politics that needs to be heard. Ben says the Democrats who suppress the more left-wing movements for things like single-payer Healthcare, exactly. Now, Angela says, my cousin works for the United States Department of Defense, and the alerts I'm aware of, they're scary as hell. Ben says that liberals, okay, I guess he got cut off, but anyway, liberals who support war. Yep, that's true. That's another difference between the left and liberals. Liberals usually kind of, shrug their shoulders and go like, well, yeah, we're at war. And they always need to find the worst examples of something happening to say, then this is a bad reason for us to have a war. Um, I mean, anyway, Ace Atkins says that, do you feel that Black Americans on the West Coast is a cautionary tale as to what will happen to other Black communities if this is continued? Latinos don't threaten white supremacy, they uphold it. Um, that is a generalized statement, Ace, but like I just said, are there Latinos who uphold white supremacy or white supremacist ideas, especially anti-Black ideas? Yes, they do. And I also am very well aware, Ace, and will agree that, we've seen all these stories for years that there were uh, drive-bys and things like this, not gang-related drive-bys either, where if Black people moved into a certain neighborhood, Latinos were basically shooting at them and shit like this. I'm very well aware of that. Oh, Curious is in the house. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Curious is, maybe she can lend some info on the whole West Coast thing. Oh well, I can't remember if she's from the West Coast. But anyway, my point here is that I see what you're saying, Ace. But again, like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Generalized issues like this is kind of like the thing that we're letting be in the way. We also know that, I mean, if we're talking about tit for tat things about individuals or groups or particular neighborhoods or what's happening on this part of the United States and this, like, so no, I don't feel that what's happening on the West Coast to African Americans is cautionary for all of us. While I do and am aware of that, I'm not trying to say gloss it over, but obviously I think that Black organizers and Latino organizers, lots of them do exist. Maybe they should be working on trying to lessen those tensions. Ace Atkins says they want in and will do whatever it takes to make it in America. Well, okay, but it's not like they're an exact success story. I mean, it's not working like how everyone thinks. I mean, we see immigrant families and the parents of these families work 2, 3, 4 jobs to quote unquote make it in America. They only do this because the idea is for their kids to be able to have a better life. And even that's not working out like everyone likes to mythologize what happens with immigrants in this country. Curious says, please still be live. Did I go out? I don't know. She's saying, yay. I do not think that this is a persecution mindset. We are not allowed on television in many of their countries. Yes, Curious, you are correct. Like, look, the colorism I'm very well aware of. I understand what you're saying. Um, Curious says many are from Africa. I think she's talking about immigrants in general. Black Dominicans may look like us, but they do not see African Americans as the same. That is true, Curious, but it's also true that some do. Again, it's like, I know I'm not discounting any of this stuff that you're saying, but I'm just saying that we do have to work on some of this shit to move forward. Curious says that blacks. Oh shit! Hold on. Really hate when this happens. Oh, damn it. Okay, sorry everybody. I went too far up in reading the comments. Curious says blacks also may also be migrating, but we are not the majority of these coming over. That's true. True. Phoenix Chastain is here. Oh, hey Phoenix, what's up? Hey, I'm gonna take you up on doing a live hangout about this. Um, as you know, I read your comment recently, like not too long ago. All right, so curious is what is being done to immigrants isn't the same as what's been done or being done to blacks. No, different struggle. You are correct, but I do believe that just because the struggles are different doesn't mean that we can't see some kind of common ground. Um, that we can't see some kind of common ground. Phoenix says, "Oh, you bet, GA. Do not underestimate what the fuck is going on. And the war of affirmative action does have black folk in mind. Listen to his Montana rally speech. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch his rally speech, but I will." Curious says this is a class issue too. Most certainly, yes. That's the reason why I think that's the only basis of common ground here. We can get past this other stuff and talk about this other stuff. Not later, not a different time. It can also happen at once too. But this is definitely the very foundation of all this is class. Curious, poor blacks are being kicked out of their jobs because capitalism is happy to have a new class to exploit. Yep, you got it. That's my point. It's a valid concern. However, we can simply turn against the structure versus the immigrants. Exactly. But I feel like we would be far more effective if it's not, well, not only just immigrants, but if we make a fucking unified layer here, women, immigrants, worker, like that's the only way we're going to make a change. It can't just be one group or just one movement at different times. That's how they've been able to keep this shit going for so long. Pure Butterfly Spirit says elitists have pit every race against each other. That's how they stay on top and in power. Curious says anytime we can build and organize for workers' rights and against labor exploitation, we should do it. Is good for blacks as well. Phoenix says that conflict between Latino and black communities on the West Coast goes way back. But this is what's interesting, Phoenix, about that. Okay. Um, I swear to you, I'm not and again, I'm not y'all know I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But this is what I find interesting. The Brown Berets, okay, look them up. The Brown Berets were an organization that were inspired by the Black Panther Party. Okay. They were neck and neck, toe to toe in unity with the Black Panther Party. The the Lord, wow, I cannot believe I'm hold on here. I'm fucking this up, y'all. Hold on, give me just 1 second. I was about to say the Vice Lords, but that's the Young Lords. The Young Lords were started off as a gang, a Puerto Rican gang, but they were doing political work with the New York Black Panthers here in New York. Does anyone find it not coincidental that in the 60s you had this black and brown unity that was going on, and then the moment that these movements fell apart, I shouldn't say the moment, but immediately after these movements fell apart, the racial groups fell into gang, and then from gang warfare, they fell into cultural violence and cultural and social violence between each other after that. I mean, one might almost say that there was almost a concerted effort to make sure that these two very powerful populations, very working class, would be at each other's throats to counter the unity and the political work that was actually happening just years before. I mean, just a few years before. Okay, because I've already said this about the gangs of LA. We all know how the Crips started. You know, it started over a argument or some shit like that over a fucking leather jacket that belonged to a black somebody who was supposedly in the Black Panthers. How the Crips and the Bloods War started. So it's like as soon as the demise of the Black Panther Party came, why suddenly black folks are killing each other over gang turf, over colors. What the fuck? So I don't, again, conspiracy, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, what we have and what we see today seems like a very aggressive erasure of what was happening in the past and what had the potential of being very dangerous and challenging white supremacy back in the day. All right, so I'm just gonna skip through down here just to catch up on the chat. Sorry, y'all. Phoenix says my neighbor is a successful black contractor. God damn it. Okay. My neighbor is a successful black contractor. All his workers are South American, and he told me he won't hire black dudes because they don't want to work. He also likes Trump. Well, yeah, and really, Phoenix, your neighbor could have been a black Democrat, and he would still have that attitude. Believe me, I've come across a lot of black business owners who are like, dude, I'm sorry, but I don't hire our people. Like they just have this attitude. And again, see, it's one of those little petty things like where you might say or where these black business owners may have encountered African Americans who are like, hey, I don't want to work. It's like there's probably some out there who would. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, anyway. But I get your point, Phoenix. Peter Butterfly Spirit says, I'm glad you're doing this Hangout Garage. This needs to be talked about. Thank you, Pure Butterfly Spirit. Curious says, he is taking advantage of people fleeing Phoenix. I hate people like that. Curious says, I bet he doesn't pay them properly either. He probably doesn't. Curious, I agree. While he's up here praising his non-black his non-black workforce, he's also enjoying, optimizing his profits by paying them complete and utter shit. I believe that. Okay, so curious. Well, Phoenix says, awesome. Let me know. Yeah, I will. I'll let you know. We're going to do the hangout. Let's see here. Curious says, yes, we have had the unity, but it's with working class black and brown. I still see it today. The gang fighting has been a result of patriarchy. That's an interesting viewpoint. Phoenix says, I get the La Raza and Black Panther connection, GA, but don't forget the BP hooked up with the KKK at one point too. I don't know about the Black Panther Party doing that. I know the Nation of Islam. I think there was the final straw by Malcolm why he left. I know that the Nation of Islam wanted. I'm sorry, Elijah Muhammad wanted Malcolm to go on a tour together, a speaking tour, with the American Nazi Party leader Lincoln Rockwell. Now, Malcolm was already at odds with Elijah Muhammad because he was the fucking cleanup man behind Elijah Muhammad's scandal with the young girls. And so, and this is all, of course, based on Malcolm's words. This is what he actually said in speeches. that he gave after he left the nation. Some of my oldest videos, I have a link in the low bar that leads to the last books of Malcolm's last speeches. So he goes into this stuff with detail. But that's the only instance I remember that. I honestly can't remember Phoenix about the Black Panther Party working with the KKK. But then again, the COINTEL program could have done what it depends on the chapter and what was going on. Who knows? Maybe that did happen. I have to look that one up. Phoenix. Curious. The drug war likely did that. Yes, the drug war, I think, was the main point. Curious. Was the catalyst, I believe, for where we're seeing Black, Latino hostilities, working class hostilities right now. Ace Atkins. Rich white communities in Los Angeles today are pure white and untouched by illegal immigration, unlike South Central, Inglewood, and Compton. But the riots of '92 scared them because it spread beyond. Okay. Phoenix says he is like Uncle Ruckus. So Phoenix is talking about her neighbor from the Boondocks. He spoils his workers sometimes too, though. He's kind of odd. Okay. Okay. Marcellus Harcum. Okay, Marcellus Harcum. I've never seen you before. Welcome, welcome. Curious says they encountered people that they couldn't exploit. Ace Atkins says South Central, unlike the Watts riots of '65, white liberals felt threatened for the first time and became more conservative and even had a Republican mayor after the riots. Yep, yep. I definitely believe that. I've always had a sense that LA was always very um, conservative, not necessarily about who's in office or who labels themselves as conservative or liberal. I just feel like, one thing I've noticed is that these cities in America that have this very sharp dynamic of between poverty and wealth. Like Baltimore is like that, DC is like that, LA. It's like the black and brown communities, particularly the black communities, they're just like in fucking hell. Like, and it always seems to be that case of like, if there's not an actual real spectrum, in terms of class, and granted, it's pretty much getting like that all over the United States. So it really isn't just about these large cities and just about black and brown, but I've noticed that about cities like that. Phoenix says, GA, I'll see if I can find the video of the BP rep speaking with the Klan because, oh, wait, Phoenix, I think, are you talking about the new Black Panther Party? If you're talking about those people who the original Black Panther Party have denounced 15, almost 20 years ago, I wouldn't be surprised. That organization is full of wing nuts, and we don't think they're. But anyway, but look, yeah, go ahead and look for what you want to tell me about. I'd be very interested in that. Angela says immigrants are protected by the EEOC. I think that's all. That's a little up for discussion. She also says it gives them all the rights of being an American without being an American. Huh. Oh. Phoenix says curious. He's got a bad attitude about women too. He's kind of bossy and loud. Phoenix says goes hand in hand. I believe it. Curious says that they're labeled as a hate group. Angela says, I know the law is to protect people against their national origin, but those American rights. Okay. All right. Well, y'all, I've got 5 more minutes before I end. I guess I'm not going to be able to talk about the gender war. I'll make sure to change that title so I don't get false flagged for, whatever they call it, having a fake title or whatever the fuck it is. Anyway, so we might talk about that next week, but I think this conversation is really good. And I may go ahead and have it to where Phoenix and I will continue to talk about this conversation next Thursday. And then after that, I have planned, again, I said I had reached out to some special to some special people I would like to have on as special guests. And if I can hear from them anytime between now and this week, I would like to have this person on. It's going to be a continuing of a conversation that from the first time I had Curious on here, as a matter of fact. We're going to talk about what Black feminism is. Now, we did that with Curious, but that was almost, damn, I feel like it was almost 2 years ago. But this is a channel, and I suggest people check her out. Her name is I'm sorry, not Baby Rad Film, Black Rad Film. I'm going to post her channel in the low bar of this video. That's who I had reached out to, but like I said, don't say anything about her coming on. I had sent a comment to her to ask if she would come on, so I want to talk to her. Okay, yeah. Ace Adkins, listen, I liked your questions. As you can see, I was open to hearing them. I'm not, so please, you're welcome to always show up. You're always welcome to show up, and thank you so much. Let's see here. Phoenix says, sorry I showed up late, but it was all good seeing y'all. It was good having you, Phoenix. And Ace Atkins says, I also watched Captain Fantastic last night. Very cool. Hey, Ace, if you talk about the Viggo Mortensen movie, that movie was so good. I actually wanted to do a review on this channel when I went to go see it. That was, I think I went to go see it summer before last. I think that was the year of my youngest daughter's first year in middle school. So, in other words, the summer. So, yeah, it was a very good movie. Yeah. So, yeah, Ace just confirmed that. Excellent movie, y'all. If you get a chance, it's called Captain Fantastic. God damn, y'all are giving me so many good ideas to do hangouts. I really need to write this shit down, or else I'm gonna forget. So maybe I'll do a quick or movie review of Captain Fantastic as another separate hangout, because y'all got to check that movie out. I think it's a good movie in that it really does talk about the whole lifestyle of people breaking from the grid, so to speak. And but in terms of this situation, this is about a family that lives this way, and it's pretty fucking good. So, all right, y'all. I want to thank everybody for coming. This was a great discussion, and thank you so much. So, I'm gonna peace out at this point, and I will see y'all later. I do have videos. That's another thing. I do have videos coming up, but like I said, this has been a crazy 2 weeks for me. And but it's all behind me now. The year is closed off. I feel like this is the first time I did a hangout. I feel like I really did a lot of stumbling and bumbling. So, I apologize. Like I said, I had my notes and stuff, but I don't know. I just felt a little discombobulated for some reason tonight. All right, man. Peace. And I will see you guys next week. Sorry. And I do have videos coming up. All right. Peace.